Hey all, I'm Cece, and today I am here to talk about some books that I have read this year. I've noticed a pattern with my absences where I show back up on YouTube with a big video explaining what's been going wrong or why I haven't been uploading. So we're skipping that, and instead I'm just going to talk about books, and I have read a few pretty great ones this year. So, let's talk about them. I believe as far as age groups we have 3 adult novellas, 2 YA books, I forgot an adult romance, and then a middle grade contemporary. So let's talk about the book that I read at the very beginning of the year, and that is Permafrost by Alistair Reynolds. This is a speculative novella about time travel and climate change, sci-fi for those who are in with the lingo. Basically, when you start this book, the world has ended, and we are going to meet a group of scientists, and it's their job to fix the world. The big plan is time travel, but because time travel can completely fuck things up, these scientists have hopefully found a way to achieve time travel, make an extremely minor change in the past, which will allow them to fix the present. It's a lot of weirdness. Luckily, our main character is an expert on paradoxes, so that helps you along the way. The time travel of this is a little hard to navigate. There were a few different sections I had to read and reread. It reminded me a bit of the non-linear, threaded ideas of time travel in This Is How You Lose the Time War, but at the same time, it just kept being something that I wasn't expecting, which is really nice. This is set around the Arctic Circle, and it's set in 2 different time periods. We've got our 2080 time period and the period we're traveling back to hopefully make a minor change. There are some, pretty upsetting ramifications of time travel, I would say, that I really liked them exploring. Yeah, we all hope everything goes well, but what are the actual logistics of sending something back to the past and you don't know where it's going, who it's going to? There are just so many variables that can't be planned for, and I think that's why I like time travel stories. This also has one of my other favorite little tropey elements, which is definitely from my fanfiction days. I'll admit it. She says, her fanfiction days weren't today, yesterday, and the day before that. But if you're into the concept of, mind sharing or, co-consciousness, I don't know, if that's hitting any bells for you. I did not know about that element going in, and so I was pleasantly surprised. It's a trope I enjoy, and this was a very cool book about unique women in very dire situations who are just trying to make a change. I appreciate that the main character of this was 70-something. She was in her 70s, I believe. There was just a lot that I really liked. I 100% want to read more Alistair Reynolds, and reading this back at the beginning of the year in January, it was just the perfect time. Everything was so frozen, and everything about this book is icy, if you can't tell by the title. I wound up giving this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Maybe I'd round that up to a 4. It's been a few months, I've forgotten. I tend to be nicer or meaner with time, but it's 2 extremes. So, 3.5 at the time. Maybe a 4. I want to talk about another adult novella, and that is What Moves the Dead. This is by T. Kingfisher and is the first book in the Sworn Soldiers series, I believe. This first book is a retelling of the Edgar Allan Poe story, The Fall of the House of Usher. If you like The Fall of the House of Usher, if you like Edgar Allan Poe, if you have Netflix and you haven't checked out the Netflix series The Fall of the House of Usher, I really encourage you to do so. It is one of my absolute favorites. Mike Flanagan, who is the creator, is up there in terms of my favorite people creating stuff right now. Around February, I rewatched The Fall of the House of Usher because I watched it last year, had to get it into my system again. I reread the Edgar Allan Poe story, and then I finally decided to pick this up and read a retelling. I will say there's a lot of room to retell because the actual story is only a few pages long. It's teeny tiny. I actually read it a couple times just to make sure I felt like I got it. I loved this. It was such a perfect companion to all of the other, creepy, gothic, Edgar Allan Poe stuff that I'd been consuming at the exact same time. We got some mushroomy stuff on the cover. That is definitely a clue from, very, very early on. If you like mushroom horror, You've probably already heard of this book, to be honest with you. It's a couple years old now. This follows an ex-soldier who gets a letter from a friend, and it's a very concerning letter. Concerning enough that our main character, Alex, rushes off to the Usher house to see what could possibly be amiss, and discovers that things are extremely creepy and messed up. The main character of this book is non-binary and uses con pronouns, which are a pronoun set within the universe of the book. There are a variety of different ones that are presented. That's one of the things I really liked, is that this has such a gothic element, but it also had certain elements of classic fantasy world building, of how this world would evolve with these different nations. And intermittently between all of the gothic stuff, it had time to be funny, and I appreciated that. I love a bit of wry humor in the middle of something absolutely horrifying. I was just endeared to the characters of this world incredibly quickly. Page 3, I was like, I love these people. Is this what I'm going to be reading about the whole book? Thank God. And it was. So, I just have to say, this was fantastic. I wound up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. I really, really liked it. I haven't had the chance to pick up the sequel yet. Is it What Feasts at Night? If I got that right, I'm gonna be so proud of myself. If there's any way that I can get this, like, perfect mix of gothic and weird humor back into my system, that'll be perfect. So, rest assured, I will be tracking down the sequel. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Really, really enjoyed it. Very highly recommended. If you can't tell, I've been on a bit of a horror kick, not just in movies and television, but also in books, so I kind of kept the ball rolling, and I found The Har. This is a book by David Sodergren. I have been spending a lot of time on Goodreads going down, like, lists and different people's reviews to find horror books that I can read, and let me tell you, if any book description opens with, like, on a small island, on an isolated island, I'm in. That's how I wound up finding The Har. This is set in an isolated Scottish fishing village. The village is pretty much empty by this point. Developers have been moving in to, like, convert it into resorts and golf courses, but there are a few people holding out, including our main character. Her name is Muriel. She's lived there her whole life. She refuses to give up the house that she and her husband lived in. Her husband has passed away a little time before the events of this book, but she's like, no, I lived here with my husband. It doesn't matter what money you give me. This is my home. This is where I'm gonna stay. And then on the other side of this, you have a bit of creepy Scottish weather, a monster, and I don't want to say vengeance, maybe vengeance. I do want to say romance, which I know is surprising, but I'm sticking to it. I don't want to give away too much more than that. If you're into creepy horror stories, if you're okay with gore, like gore, then absolutely I would recommend this. I will say the villains of this book weren't the most realistic. Like, to be fair, that's probably not necessarily what you're going for when you go into this book, but there is a certain level of how evil can we make these guys so that you don't feel bad for how much we kill them. Just the extent to which these people were horrible pushed the realms of belief for me. I would definitely recommend this for fans of scary, isolated horror, and I'm gonna say it again, romance, just a little bit. Consider it. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. We interrupt this dedicated round of horror to bring you a review of a YA graphic novel. This is Squire by Sarah Alfagi and Nadia Shamas. Squire follows a character named Aiza. She is part of the Ornu people. This is set in a fictional fantasy world. And in this world, the Ornu people have been recently conquered by an invading empire. At this point, as the Ornu people have been colonized, basically their only route to any kind of citizenship or ability to travel is to enroll in the military. So we're following a main character who has always been sort of drawn to the idea of joining the military. She's very captured by the Squire program, which is a competitive program that any of the conquered territories are allowed to compete in and be a part of. And depending on how high up you get in the military, you get certain rights, like the ability to move between different places within the empire, or access to more food, because famine has been a considerable issue. Aiza sees getting to the point of being a knight as the only way to get her family safety, security, and citizenship. Aiza's parents agree to this, but only on the condition that she cover up the tattoo that marks her as being one of the Ornu, because her parents are so sure she's going to face discrimination from the other recruits that it's going to make it impossible to reach higher ranks. And by hiding who she is and being a part of the military, she's exposed to hatred in a completely new way. It becomes a question of, how are you supposed to be a part of this military, this thing that guarantees you basic rights, when that same military has been discriminating against you and pushing you down for your entire life? There's a lot going on in this book. I just want to say that it's absolutely brilliant. I'm having a hard time describing it because the world is so well built and there are so many different parts of it. Like, I loved learning about the history, as fucking upsetting as it was. This was written by a Palestinian American and a Jordanian American, and I think that that is also very relevant to the stories within here about being part of a colonized people, or about not being free in the land that's supposed to be your home. This is brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I loved all of the characters as they came together from their very, very different points of view, from people who have been totally indoctrinated to people who are joining from the outskirts and have no concept of what, like, politics within the big city look like. I was extremely impressed. I loved reading this. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend. Alright, we're gonna do this one pretty quick. Let's talk about the middle grade book I read, which is Ways to Make Sunshine by Renee Watson. I read this book because I was about to get rid of it, and then I went, you know, I can knock out a middle grade book in like an hour. I'll just read it instead of getting rid of it. So I did. This is about a little girl named Ryan who is in the 4th grade, and she is just trying to live up to the name her parents gave her. She was told when she was young that Ryan means king, and that means she is supposed to be a leader, a courageous and strong member of her family and community, and she's determined to keep that up even through moving to a smaller house and struggling with the fact that she feels like her talents are so much harder to demonstrate to others than the talents of her friends. I picked this up at a Goodwill like a couple years ago because I love Renee Watson. She's one of my favorite authors, and I 100% recommend that you check out her YA books. Piecing Me Together. Is it right here? No. Tragic. Everyone should read Piecing Me Together by Renee Watson. It's gorgeous. Other than this book being very sweet, a super comforting and nice middle grade book, I don't know that I have more to say for it than that. I'm glad I read this because I love Renee Watson, because I want to read all of her work, but I have enjoyed her YA work a lot more. All of her books tend to focus on Black girls in the Pacific Northwest, and as a Pacific Northwestian, you know, just gonna keep picking them up. Oh, and I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It was very cute. It was very cute. Somehow, I'm supposed to talk about this next book in, like, a few minutes. I don't really know how that's possible, but let's give it a go. Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. This is a YA horror dark fantasy book, I guess? Post-apocalyptic too, yeah. I do think it's interesting that it says on the back here that it's perfect for fans of Gideon the Ninth and Annihilation, which are both adult horror dark fantasy leaning books. And this is YA, but I'm gonna have to go ahead and agree with that comparison. This book follows 17-year-old Benji, who is a trans boy on the run from the cult that raised him. So this particular lovely fundamentalist cult also introduced a horrific virus that completely destroyed the world, so we are left with very few humans. And what's really great is that the cult has plans to do even more fucked up shit. Because the virus that they unleashed, it doesn't make you sick, it turns you into something else. The cult would say angels. But, you know, to each their own. And this cult has been waiting for a very special someone to turn into a very special monster so that the end of the world can happen for real this time. No more people. So Benji's escaping this cult. Unfortunately, he's just a little too late, and he's already been infected with the thing that's going to make him into this apocalypse-bringing monster. When Benji gets away from the cult, finally, he finds a group of survivors who have been making their home in an LGBTQ+ community center. Basically, when the world went to shit, a bunch of people were at that community center and they just never left. Wrote it out together, and now they're family. And Benji is incredibly grateful that he gets to be welcomed into this community center. It's the first place he's ever seen other trans people. But the more that he becomes comfortable with this community, with these people, the more he's afraid, because he is slowly but surely morphing into a monster. There are still so many other elements of this book that I haven't gotten into with this description, like the fact that there is one person at the community center who knows that Benji is infected, and he is potentially going to use that knowledge to his advantage. That guy is a sharpshooter named Nick. He's autistic, and is my favorite person. I love him, and in fact, in honor of Nick being autistic, and that his different methods of, like, stimming and regulation are shown throughout this lovely book, in honor of all that, I would like to share with you just some of the footage of me reading the last 50 pages of this book. So, little sneak peek into where I've been. Turns out I was really burned out because I'm autistic. And I've been working on that. Part of that has been learning all of the different ways that I have been masking. And apparently, as I've been reading, I've just been shoving all the emotions down somewhere. And so now when I read, the emotions are kind of everywhere. And the best way that I could deal with the rage of this book was literally pacing around my living room, reading, biting my thumb. That's a good old stim for me. We did plenty of these. Plenty of those, and ultimately it made me cry. What the fuck? I'm sure this is gonna be great to watch back later. I hope everyone enjoyed. It's really beautiful to see a community of queer teens that have, like, made their home together, have made a home of loving and accepting one another in a place that has been completely destroyed, where they've been cut off. None of them have access to family or friends anymore. They have each other, and they've made it work. And I think that the themes of rage and transformation, creating a community, it was all very good. It was all very queer. Like, oh my god. Oh, like I said, extremely upsetting book. Please seek trigger warnings. I will put them actually down in the description below for all of the books that I am talking about here. But if you get into a bit of horror, religious trauma, and loving the monstrous, oh, and books that are angry, then this is everything for you. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I cannot wait to read more books by Andrew Joseph White. This was phenomenal. Okay, last up we have a romance book, and that would be Chef's Kiss. This is by TJ Alexander. So this is a romance about a woman named Simone. She's a recipe developer, and she works in a test kitchen in New York City. Basically, if you were online at any point for the BA Test Kitchen when they were creating videos regularly, it's fan fiction set around the BA Test Kitchen. Kind of. Simone is very type A. She has a particular way of doing things. That way is the right way, so why should it not be done that way? And then she goes into work one day and is informed that the company is going into a new direction. The only way they're going to survive is if they make YouTube videos. And Simone, as the youngest and prettiest person, let's go youngest and prettiest and probably whitest person on staff who can be put in front of a camera, and everybody who runs the company is like, you're young, you'll be great on camera, it's easy. Fucking nightmare of my life. Anyway, this entire new direction for Simone and Simone's job is enough, and then she walks back into the kitchen, and it turns out the old kitchen manager has gotten hurt, and now there's a new kitchen manager, and this one has a new way of doing things. Ray becomes this constant chaotic presence in a place where Simone was supposed to feel at peace. And then a video of Ray and Simone goes viral, and they're pretty much stuck with each other at that point. Books about food and food as a love language are kind of my everything, so this was perfect for me in that regard. This is also a queer romance. Ray is non-binary, although they're not out at the beginning of the book. They come out over the course of certain events unfolding, and I would say that coming out is met with some different responses in a personal and corporate way. So this isn't all easy breezy if you like your romances free of like the day-to-day workplace transphobia and racism that exists in corporate America. Then maybe this isn't for you. I kind of liked the bit of realism. There's a certain amount of this that's definitely Simone, like, recognizing her cis privilege, just all of the ways that she's literally never thought about non-binary people before. But with all of that being said, this is an incredibly queer book. They go to queer events. They go to parties with all of their queer friends. So in terms of the personal of this world, very accepting and loving towards trans people. It's just when you get into the upper corporate business management side that things start to take a shift for the not so great. One of my favorite trope pairings is the one who's very serious and has to get things done a certain way, and the one who's a little crazy about it. And that is Ray and Simone. That was really fun to watch. I loved how much cooking there was in this book. I loved how much food was used as a love language. Like, Simone isn't great at communicating, but she's great at baking. And I appreciate her trying to substitute the one talent for the other. This was specifically easy to read for me, I think, because I have been focused so much more on fanfiction the last few months. It's the thing that my brain can process, and this was a pretty easy jump. Although I would say it is light on the spice. I believe that's what the kids are saying. The spice, low. It's more a book about looking back on a moment and being like, oh my god, that was so cute, I can't stand it. So if that's more your vibe, then this is for you. If you are on Archive of Our Own, searching for fluff, or like bakery AU. One of my favorite ways that you can tell a romance is something I'm having fun with is that certain characters get into situations that I get so emotionally invested in that I'm speaking to the characters like I'm, the dad at the TV being like, don't do it! The number of times one of these two would say something to the other and I'd be like, stop. Unfortunately, I have to excuse myself. I'm saying they're dweebs and they have crushes on each other. That's what I'm saying. One other thing I wanted to say about this is that I really liked how it introduced side characters. I know that that's much more of a thing within romance because a lot of the time you're introducing side characters who might be your lead characters later on. But it just felt like a very authentic unfolding of relationships. Someone that you meet at work, then the people that you meet in their life. You get your main players, then you meet your roommates and your friends and your roommates' friends. As a world, it felt very authentic and realized, and maybe it's just because this was, in a lot of ways, BA Test Kitchen fanfiction, but I appreciated that, and it was really sweet. I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Okay, that's it. I'm done. I have to wrap up now. I have been talking for a long time, and I'm losing my voice because I am not used to talking this long in front of a camera, or at all. It's, been a while. Hopefully I'm back. Hopefully I'm here. I kind of want to start making videos again because I've been reading again, and I want to be able to talk about these books with you. So if you have read any of these books, please let me know down in the comments below what you thought. If you have a favorite of any of these, are there any books that I should read because I loved Hell Followed With Us? Because I don't know if I've ever read a book that was more my shit than that. So please, send that my way. If you have other questions about, like, what's going on in my life, where I've been, go ahead and ask those down in the comments too. I'll do my best to answer a few, or maybe some of them will get turned into a video, but like I said, I'm not doing that. I am just saying, here I am, here's a wrap-up, here are the books I read. Maybe you'll get my long emotional rant some other day, but not today. If you're curious what I've been up to in terms of creation, then I would love to direct your attention to some links down in the description below because I have art for sale! Bookish art! bookworms and stacks of books and fun little sayings. Right now I have stuff available primarily on Redbubble, but I also have prints available on InPrint, and I'm slowly but surely working on my Society 6 shop. So if you're interested in stickers or prints or notebooks or bags or whatever, then check out the links in the description. It would mean the world to me. I've been working very, very hard at improving my art these last couple years, and I'm so proud of some of the finished products that I have available, so yeah. Other than that, thank you all so much for watching, and thank you all for being here after such a break. It really does mean the world to me, and hopefully, I'll see you in another video very soon. Bye!